What's up, everybody? My name is Alex. I am your host here on the Swole Friends podcast. I am also the co-founder here at Swolverine, where we provide athletes and individuals with top-tier supplements that are proprietary, blend-free, clinically dosed, and scientifically proven effective so you can live and perform each day at your highest human potential. Today, I am joined with Christian Harris, a household name in the CrossFit community, and for a good reason. Super excited about this one and super excited to have Christian. He is a husband, a father to two amazing little boys, an athlete, an entrepreneur, and a coach. Very well-rounded person. He's also a 2 times games athlete, a 5 times regionals athlete, a 1-time CrossFit Demo Teams athlete. But today we're going to give you a little bit of a one-on-one take on what makes Christian who he is and what adversities he's faced, what triumphs he celebrated, and who's the man behind the 183,000 followers on Instagram, right? So Christian, what's up? It's nice to have you. How's the day going so far?
It's going well. Thank you for the awesome intro. Thank you. I
Hopefully I
appreciate
covered all
that.
the bases. I did my
Yeah, we
research a
got the
little
we
ahead.
got the day started well. Woke up, went to the gym, did a little fitness, hopped in the sauna for a little bit, a little cold tub, and here we are.
There we go. Is that a pretty typical day?
Yeah. It's a typical Thursday. Thursday's nice because it's more of an active rest day, so it's a little bit of a slower morning. I kind of prep the day for especially the boys because I'm getting up a little bit later on Thursdays. I made them oatmeal this morning before I headed out. And yeah, just made an espresso. I never get to do that on most days during the week. I'm usually drinking like a strong coffee or something like that. So it's nice to have that slower routine every now and again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, you guys heard he's a very, very busy human. And so when it's not a Thursday, what does kind of your day-to-day look like? How do you prioritize your time? How do you find time for everything? I mean, what is that? What's your routine in that sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've gotten better with it over the years. I didn't always have a set routine, and a lot of it comes down to having a calendar and having a schedule, which I had never used to really abide by. I kind of just used to freestyle everything. And now having that, I've been able to be much more productive on a day-to-day basis. So typically my day starts at 5 a.m., really technically 5:03. I have my alarm set for. Uh, I mean, how detailed do you want me to go?
I mean, as detailed as you want to share, really. I mean, 503 is pretty specific, but I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
right. I'm up at 5:03. Um, brush my teeth. I get dressed,
Ladies and
and
gentlemen, he brushes his teeth. We're good.
I brush my teeth in the morning.
Through the
Get
roof.
get right to the kitchen. Fill up a nice tall glass of water with apple cider vinegar, little cayenne pepper, a squeeze of lemon, and drink that. Take some supplements for the day, and then I'm out the door by about 5:20.
Oh, okay.
Get to
It's
the
pretty
gym, right? Yeah, get to the gym, write the workout up on the board, and it gives me about 20 minutes before the 6 a.m. class starts. And I'm kind of just like moving around a little bit, just trying to like wake my body and mind up. Coach the 6 a.m. class. And after that, I usually train from about 7 to 10, maybe 7 to 11 if it's a longer training session. Once I do that, I do a little bit of recovery work. Um, I usually don't do the sauna every day, but I do try to cold plunge daily. After that, I eat my first meal of the day at about 11:30, 12. It's usually some form of oatmeal. And once I do that, then the next block of time, typically from about noon to 3, 4 o'clock, I am spending on either programming, design work for Move Fast Lift Heavy, the clothing company, or doing something as an athlete slash influencer for, companies that I work with, whether it be creating a social media post or whatever it is. So that bigger chunk of time is spent on doing things really like work related outside of the gym.
Hmm.
And then from there, I kind of try to not be on my phone or computer as much because the kids are home at about 3, 4 o'clock. I coach my littlest guys football team right now, and my bigger guys in soccer. So if I don't have practice with them, I try to do some sort of activity with them at the house, whether it's like doing ladder drills or just some sort of form of fitness. And then once that's done, they're doing homework and just doing like some family stuff for the rest of the day. Kind of wind down by about 7 o'clock. Maybe we're watching a show, and then I'm in bed getting ready for the next day by about 8:39. So kind of boring.
It's okay. I mean, it's routine though. It's I think a lot of people just kind of, underestimate consistency and simplicity, right? They're always like, I got to do all this stuff and I got to be here and be there. And it's like, well, if you can have that effort and bring that effort, at that same level every day, you're going to be more successful, right? You don't need these
100%.
extreme or drastic measures. And I'm sure you see that a lot as a coach, right? Where people, are like team no days off, or it has to hurt for it to be effective. And, it's kind of regardless of the level that you're at, as long as you can bring that consistent effort. And then over time, you're going to see that effort increase, right? Your ability or your, ability to kind of become more of what you're looking towards, right? As that mentor, when they're at level 10, you're able to progress through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 a little bit more consistently, a little bit more effectively. Um, as far as like being a coach, what is your favorite part about coaching? I mean, you've been in the fitness space for a long time. I mean, you're in the gym coaching at 6 a.m. What's your favorite thing about it? What do you love to like help people develop or help them pursue within themselves?
My favorite thing is being able to give someone that aha moment. There's always going to be something that somebody struggles with. And when you can kind of help them break through that particular thing that they're struggling with, whether it be nutrition, fitness related, it always is one of the most rewarding things to help them break through a plateau.
Mhm.
So that's what I really like.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
that's what I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, it's really enlightening, right? And it's nice when you're in person too, so you can kinda, like, see that sparkle in their eyes and, like, that little moment where you're like, "Oh, I can
Yeah,
do this."
that's one of the things I don't think I can give up is working with people in person. It's one of those things that definitely it fills my cup for sure. I mean, I've definitely taken quite a step back from coaching, right? Like when I first opened my gym, you're coaching everything, and now I'm really only coaching one, maybe two classes a day tops.
Mhm.
So it definitely helps to work with people, but then it also not coaching, more than two or three classes at any given point. It allows me to have energy and the time to do other endeavors as well.
Definitely. Do you think that that was a hard transition when you originally were like, "Hey, like, I gotta set this healthy boundary. I can't take on 4 or 5 classes in a day. I don't," or was that just kind of like a natural progression for you?
I think it was a natural progression. As I wanted to grow other aspects of different businesses more, I knew I needed to give and take a little bit with that. And coaching was one of those things that it really takes not only like for per class, right? An hour and a half, right? Whether you're prepping for the class, then actually coaching it, and then kind of like the outro of the class. But it also takes a lot of energy, right?
Mhm.
You have to put your best foot forward every single time. It takes a lot of, you know, being on when you coach a class.
Mhm.
So it's not something you just walk through and you're just there. It requires a lot, and especially if you do 2, 3 classes back to back, it could. For me, I know it burnt me out because I always try to give my best when I'm coaching classes. So
Yeah, you don't wanna just go through the motions, right? Like, okay,
exactly.
workout. Okay, cool down, bye. You know? It's like
People can tell. People can tell.
oh, they definitely can, and it's not
100%.
fun, right? It's not as a member or as, like, someone dropping in that class, but you don't always realize the immense amount of effort and energy to takes to be that coach. Um, have you always been I mean, when did you start coaching?
I started working with athletes and clients, I'd say maybe junior year of college. I just started by doing some personal training stuff at a Gold's Gym. And after about a year, I transitioned to working for a place called Parisi Speed School. They were attached to our gym. And what really drew me to this was you got you got the chance to work with athletes to help them better themselves for their sports. And it was about running mechanics and things like that. And at the time, I was playing college football. So it just really felt like home for me. And I got to work with a lot of younger kids, um, you know, anywhere from 8 to 13 years old. But I did get the opportunity to work with a lot of high school, college, and even some pro athletes as well. And it was really just a lot of fun. Being an athlete, working with athletes, it was just like this hand in hand type of relationship. And that's really where I fell in love with like working with people and coaching was that aspect right there.
Mm,
Um, so
yeah. Not every athlete makes a good coach, right?
yeah, I
Um,
mean it takes some time. I mean, in the beginning, I know I definitely was not the greatest coach or anything like that, but if there was something I didn't know, I would always try to do my research to figure it out, and I would always just give as much as I could to that athlete and client. And you got to care and you got to be willing to figure it out if it's something that you don't know. Those are like two things that to me make a very good coach.
Absolutely. Have you had, like, some favorite coaches in the past for you? And what some of those favorite ones, what have they taught you, or what are some of those biggest takeaways for you as an athlete?
Yeah, my college football strength and conditioning coach, Coach Gill, he is someone that I think kind of molded me to the work ethic that I bring to life every day. Um, and playing for him and working with him, it was definitely a very rewarding experience because he was somebody that really taught you that the work that you put in, he taught me that the basically whatever work you put in is what's going to come out of it. And the harder you work, the more playing time you're going to get. And it's just a very practical application of hard work and success.
Mhm.
Um, so he definitely had probably the biggest impact on the way I am today as far as, you know, the work ethic and that whole aspect. Um, and I've worked with a ton of different coaches over my CrossFit career. I got a chance to work with the folks at Invictus, CJ Martin and Tino. Um, I got a chance to work with Jason Leiden, and he's someone that I worked with for a few years and was definitely a mentor to me, especially from a programming side of things. Um, Taught me there, that it's not only about the pen and paper stuff, right? It's not just about what you write up on the whiteboard or what you program for an athlete, but it's also the relationships that you develop and really kind of finding out what makes an athlete tick
Mhm.
that will help them to be successful. So definitely had the chance to work with quite a few coaches, and grateful for all the work and the things that they've taught me.
Has there ever been a time where like you weren't able to seek out a coach or didn't have a mentor and felt kind of like lost, or were you kind of always in a position to have a coach or have someone that you could look up to in that sense?
For the most part, I always had somebody that I was able to work with. So when I got into CrossFit, this is back in 2011, I was just kind of doing main site stuff. And there's a video out there floating around of me trying to snatch a 95-pound barbell and failing, and it's like not a not a pretty looking lift. And after maybe 2 or 3 months of continually not getting any better at that one specific movement,
Mm-hmm.
I sought out working with a coach at a local CrossFit gym. And when I started working with this coach, I actually got my level one, and I kind of like fully engulfed myself in CrossFit. Started working at this gym, started working with a coach, and started to see a lot of progress. And just kind of like a lot of light bulbs went off for me.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started to see some success, I really got the itch to compete in CrossFit. So, within about 5 or 6 months of doing my first CrossFit workout, I was doing the Open. I qualified for my first regionals in 2012, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of just get that craving, right, for more. And I think that's a pretty similar feeling or thought across athletes, right? Especially post college that CrossFit offers, right? Is this ability to be competitive and to fuel that spirit and to challenge yourself in a way that when you become an adult, there's not always that there, right? Like I think a lot of people look at like, oh, competitive softball or kickball or, the beer league. And for some people, that's not enough. And I think that's where CrossFit can really shine. It also provides a community that doesn't necessarily always involve things like drinking, right? And you work with athletic brewing, right? And athletic brewing, for anyone who doesn't know, is a non-alcoholic drink. I mean, I'm sure you could elaborate on that, but it can be a very healthy environment for people. Do you feel like that fueled that competitive spirit for you post college or post sports that maybe you weren't expecting?
1,000,000%. When I finished playing college football, and the dreams of potentially like going pro, or maybe doing like Canadian League or semi-pro or something like that, all that stuff died out. And I think as an athlete, if you don't envision your backup plan, you can definitely have a feeling of being lost. And I definitely was a little bit lost at that time. And I was still working at that place, Parisi Speed School, and one of my coworkers at the time was telling me about CrossFit. And it took about one or at least a year before I actually finally tried it. And I mean, he was bugging me about it. And I finally gave it a shot. I did the first workout I did was Fight Gone Bad.
Oh no.
And
And you came
yeah,
back?
yeah. The reason why I came back is because I remember just being on the floor dead, and I'm like, that really kicked my ass. I need more of this. And
Yeah.
that's really what gave me the itch to kind of fully engulf myself into it. You know, I was working out hard, and I kept in shape, right? But I never did anything up until that point that really, really floored me like that since being in college.
Mhm.
And that really gave me that feeling of, all right, I really like this feeling. Let's kind of pursue this and see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like you're laying on the floor dying, you feel really alive. It's kind
Yeah.
of kind of counterintuitive.
Weird how that works.
Like, just leave me here for a second. I'm good. What was little Chris like? What was baby Christian like? I mean, what were you like growing up? Did you play sports? Were you the clown in the class? Were you quiet? Were you
As a kid, I was definitely quiet, but I was a competitive little shit. Um, I played baseball from a young age all the way through high school. That was the only organized sport that I played, but I did play pretty much every sport, pickup games of basketball, touch football, hockey, handball, all of it. Anything you can think of, we were playing it. And yeah, I was just uber competitive as a kid. My younger brothers, I remember we used to get into like little fights all the time just because I was so competitive and I hated losing. So yeah, definitely there, definitely competitive there. Always into sports, into music, into fashion. I used to draw a lot as a kid. Um, those are kind of like my big hobbies was sports, listening to music, and like art and clothing and stuff like that. Sneaker culture.
okay? Do you feel like that kind of inspired, the brand that you've created with Move Fast, or where did
Yeah,
that
100%. 100%. I remember being in like seventh or eighth grade, like wanting to design my own clothes. I didn't have obviously have the resources at the time or anything like that, but it was something that I've always wanted to do. And through my college years, I got into music. I got into rapping a little bit,
Oh.
and yeah, and at the time, I was starting to actually get a little bit of buzz and notoriety, and I started doing shows and things like that. And I remember one time being in the basement and like tie dyeing shirts and like spray painting like logos and things on the shirt. And I had like a little concert. And that was like the first taste of like actually doing something from like a clothing standpoint.
Mhm.
And then once the music thing died out, obviously got into CrossFit. And when I qualified for my first regional, I designed a shirt with the words "Move Fast, Lift Heavy" on it. And people really liked it, got a good response, sold a lot of shirts. And that was kind of how the company was born, was through a regional shirt to help pay for some expenses.
Yeah.
And from there, it was kind of like working out of my closet in my bedroom. All the clothing was stocked in there. I was at the post office every day doing shipping labels and everything like that. And now it is where it is today. It's still a small company, but it's grown up quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was, so you said around the first regional, so 2014, 15,
2012. Yeah, I've
12?
been in the game for a while. Yeah.
Okay, and then your first regional was what year?
2012. So I
Okay, got it.
started in the winter of 2011. So this is probably what, like October or so in 2011. Then I was a member and coach at CrossFit South Shore
Mhm.
and qualified for the first regional in 2012. And I mean, I'll never forget it because the first open workout was the 7 minutes of burpees.
You're just starting off with
And
the worst workout.
Yeah. The worst workout in existence.
You can get through those things, ladies and gentlemen. You can stay in the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first one, 2012.
For sure. So, I mean, for those of us who know, I mean, social media kind of wasn't really a thing. It was, but it wasn't. On your website, you talked about doing content before it was cool. And, it seems like you have a little bit of a lot of bit of creative talent, right? That has been fostered throughout the years, but that you've noticed as a young kid, right? And drawing and like being engaged. And yeah, sports were cool, but they were also just a piece of you, right?
Yep.
They weren't kind of your whole story. And so it's hard to create content, right? It's hard to work cameras and have like that artistic style and to be able to, get that out of your head and onto what you're creating. How have you developed that? Were you kind of the person who sat and watched YouTube? Did you study that in school? Or did you have friends that kind of led you into that? Are you very self-taught?
Definitely all self-taught. I'm pretty crafty with figuring things out from like just a tech savvy perspective.
Mhm.
When I was doing music, I like produced some of my own music and just kind of like self-taught myself. I was working with a program in the beginning called Fruity Loops, which is like a beat maker, more of like a drum type of thing.
Mhm.
And then I moved into Logic, which is a lot more involved, where you can create really anything with any noise. You can put it down into the computer and make music that way.
Mhm.
So musically, I kind of like self-taught myself there. And then I started like making music videos. Not that I was obviously behind the camera, but I would have somebody shooting video, and then I would take the video and kind of upload it into my computer. And I was using like a lot of iMovie when that first opened up or started, and
Mhm.
just like teaching myself how to like cut the video to the music, so that like what you see a lot of people doing on reels nowadays is like when you hear like a snare in a song or a clap in the song, the frame changes to like the next part of the video, and the video goes along with the music. So I was
Mhm.
doing this, over 10 years ago, making music videos, but then also teaching myself how to create logos, and teaching myself about Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator through making album art. So, I'd
Mhm.
make a song, and then I would make like a artwork for it, upload it onto the internet. I was using um, Bandcamp was like the hosting website for the music. I think there's still stuff on there, so if you guys dig deep enough, I'm sure you'll find it. Um, you'll
There we
see
go.
like so you'll see like an album art, you'll see some music, but a lot of it was just self-taught.
Mhm.
So then fast forward to now, I'm starting to do fitness, not into music anymore. um, you'll see like a lot of my earlier videos, they kind of look like what reels look like now, with how creative it's gotten, slow motion, and putting graphics over things. I was doing this stuff 10 years ago before it was as cool as it is now. um, but yeah, it's I've been in the game for a while, so
Yeah, definitely know your way around it, but that's kinda you can't really teach that creative uniqueness, I guess, though, right? And I think a lot of times, in social media, especially now, it's a lot of copy and paste. It's a lot of like recreation. It's not a lot of thought. It's just there, right? And you always can see that within creators that they have like that original touch to it, and that's definitely something you have. I know you have it. And it's admirable, especially with creating a brand or your personal brand and maintaining that image and maintaining that congruency between things, And when you started the business, did you think that you would be here? Did you think that it would kind of go this far or be where it's at today as far as like move fast?
I always envisioned that I would have some success with it, just was never sure how big it would get.
Mhm,
Right now we have an affiliate that's doing very well. We've hit some milestone numbers there in the past year. Obviously, the clothing brand is something that is worldwide,
mhm,
which is pretty awesome. It's pretty cool to say that. And then just recently in the past year, we've launched our online training platform. And
mhm,
this was born, it's something that I've wanted to do previous to launching it, but through COVID, with a lot of the downtime and not being in the gym as much, it was almost like a necessity for this to happen.
mhm.
And it's been a great experience, um, being able to cater to more than just what's in the gym. It's an opportunity to work with a lot of athletes worldwide that I would never have the opportunity to if I just was a coach and in my own gym. You know what I mean? So it gives you a lot more exposure that way. And it's been one of the more rewarding opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny how you can know or meet or make these acquaintances or make really quality relationships with athletes and like you've never met them face to
Yeah.
face, right? It's kind of that neat bridge that technology has. And um, it's been interesting to watch different brands through the pandemic, through COVID, and what people have done to pivot, who made it, who didn't, you know? Do you feel like were times during COVID where you wanted to give up anything, everything? I mean, did you find that you were faced at adversity and it was very challenging in different ways, or did you just root into your processes and who you were a little bit further and say, game on?
Yeah, definitely found myself digging a bit deeper to figure out ways to make things work. From the gym side of things, well, when COVID first started, I didn't like, I was like, all right, this is going to be done next week. Like, all right, we're shut down
Mhm.
for a week and all right, we'll get back to it.
You got the flu,
And
it'll
then I'm
be over
like, you're right. Then I'm like, all right, well, I guess this is a little bit more serious than I initially thought.
soon.
And we were lucky enough that our membership base was very loyal. So we didn't lose really any members for maybe the first month or two.
Mhm, mhm,
But then in New York, especially because we were one of the last states to go back, we kept getting pushed back further and further into
mhm,
the opening phases, and we ended up being phase 4 by the time it was all said and done. So from March until mid-September, technically, like, gyms were not to be open.
mhm,
So, mid-March hits, everything gets shut down, and then by the middle of April, we're like, "All right, we really gotta do something, like, this isn't gonna work." So what we did was we put together a PDF of 60 workouts. Everything had a video explanation and demo videos with it. And what we did was we put that out there and we allowed the members of the gym to borrow a piece of equipment that went along with the PDF. So from what I remember, it was a dumbbell, a plate, and a kettlebell, or maybe a box as well.
mhm,
And what you did was you had, the first 15 workouts, you were using this set of equipment, and then you would return that, and then you would kind of like rotate in the next piece of equipment for the next block of workouts. So that worked for a little while, kept people, entertained and occupied. And then once that got a little bit boring, or it really just not boring, but it became hard to keep people accountable,
Mhm.
and it became hard to keep people engaged without that in-person contact, right? I mean, that's why everybody goes to the gym. It's for the accountability. It's to get that in-person feedback and the human interaction and human touch. And without
Mhm.
having that, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
So what we did next was we took our rig from inside of the gym and we installed it outside, literally, like hammer drills drilling into the parking lot, and the rig was outside. We had the parking lot repaved, and we bought some outdoor duct tape and basically made squares in the parking lot for people to like space out.
Mm.
And we just basically ran classes outdoors. As long as it wasn't raining, there was classes outside, and we had a full schedule. And this was probably maybe like the end of May, June, we started to do this. And that really helped us to maintain retention until we were able to open back up full
Mhm.
swing. So that was one thing that we did. On the clothing side of things, we we were releasing launches like every other week. My creativity was definitely flowing quite a bit during those times, and
Mm.
we had one of our best years from a clothing standpoint during COVID. And then again, the online training that was launched during COVID. So a lot of things going on, definitely keeping busy for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, just kind of again, like I to get back to that what you started with, I dug deeper into finding a way to get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever face creative burnout?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Um, so especially on the clothing side of things, what we try to do is we try to stay a few months ahead of schedule. And by doing so, it allows you time, especially if you're in a creative slump, it allows you time to kind of get out of that slump, right? So,
Mhm.
if I have January, February, March, everything in the chamber ready to go, I have a 3-month window to, develop the next quarter's designs and launches, right? But if I was doing this every week or every month and just going like kind of chasing myself,
Mhm.
I could feel a lot of pressure, or which is how things were in the beginning. There could be a lot of pressure to meet a deadline and not meet it because you're in that creative slump. So it definitely helps to be ahead of the game and have things scheduled, which again, going back to like where we first started this conversation was having a schedule, having a plan. It allows you to be much more creative and productive with your time. And it's one of the reasons I've been able to have some success or more success over the past few years is because of that. Where again, I was kind of shooting from the hip in the beginning.
Yeah. And sometimes you just gotta do it, right? Like, that's just what you gotta do to get the plane off the runway. Whereas other times, you have to have that structure because or else the plane's gonna crash right back down on the runway.
100%.
You're like, "Oh, no." And we always I think a lot of people come to us and like, "Well, what do I do if I wanna start this? What do I do if I wanna do it?" And it's like, establish your mission, your vision, your values. Those are always gonna be your anchors. And then, like you're saying, establish like your time and your time blocks. And some people, it works to make lists, and other people it works to make time blocks and have that 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. And that can be applied to anything. It's not starting a business. It's really like kind of your values in life, right? It's cool to have
Absolutely.
goals, but those goals are going to change and they adapt throughout your life. But your value systems don't or necessarily shouldn't change and should be exerted in kind of all you do, right? How did you and your wife meet?
My wife and I met in high school, so
Okay.
we're high school sweethearts. Um,
That's adorable.
ki kind of a little bit of a funny story. Um, I wish she could tell you because she's she's from her end, it's a little bit funnier. But
Bring her
so I
in.
moved a lot. I moved a lot as a kid, and basically like single mom, right? Two brothers, and I grew up in Brooklyn, and in the middle of ninth grade, I moved from Brooklyn to Long Island, and I went to a town called Brentwood, and I was there for maybe 2.5 years. Yeah, about 2.5 years because I moved to Islip, which is where I met my wife. I moved there in the spring of junior year, but I still had all of my old high school's like uniform from playing baseball. So my first day, I went to baseball practice. I had like all the basically opposing teams stuff on, but I was there for practice at this new high school. And she saw me, I guess, and was like, "Who's that?" And like basically went digging and trying to find out who I was and all this other stuff. And then come to find out the next day at school, our lockers are like across from each other. And yeah, that's kind of like where that started. And then senior year, we weren't like dating or anything at the time. And then senior year, there was a group of kids that I sat with at lunch, and they were like, "Dude, you got to come play football. Like, you have the size, you got the build. Like, just come try it out. Trust me, if you don't like it, then just quit or whatever." So I tried football, and I really liked it. I enjoyed the camaraderie aspect of it. I loved like the hard work aspect of it, and boom, so I started doing football. Homecoming came, and during the game I got a hip pointer, which is basically taking a helmet to your hip, and it
Mhm.
feels like it's a really bad bone bruise, but like you basically like can't walk on it. So I was on crutches for homecoming and the homecoming dance and everything like that. And Danielle came over and like she took my crutches and was like making me like hobble around a little bit, and we were just like dancing, and that's kind of like how we met and started hooking up.
That's awesome. Now you guys have
So
2 sons, right? How long you guys been married?
two boys, got married in 2013, so almost 10 years now. Yeah.
That's exciting. What's your favorite part about being a dad?
Yeah. Favorite part about being a dad. I mean, I don't know if it's my favorite part or it's like or what it is, but when you become a parent, at least for me anyway, I feel like become such a softy. Like like the littlest things, like sometimes I'll find myself like crying sometimes. It's weird.
There you go.
Like for my older son's birthday, I was just like looking back at old videos of like him when he was younger, and like I just started like bawling.
Yeah.
Like time is just so precious, and I think sometimes you take it for granted, and especially like on your iPhone when you swipe over and it shows you like favorite memories or things like that, and it just flashes back to like when your kid is this little thing you were holding in your arms.
Mhm.
It just really puts things into perspective sometimes that, you know, you need to be present and
Yeah.
enjoy every moment that you're in here and be now, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's one of my favorite things about being a dad is that it really grounds you and it really keeps you present, or hold you accountable to be as present as possible, right? That's why I try not to be on my phone or try not to be, doing work when the kids are home, because I try to be as present as possible.
Mhm. Yeah, and we see ourselves all the time, right? And it's hard to see how we change or how we evolve, but with little kids, it's just so in your face. There's, like, no denying
Mhm.
the way that
Mhm.
time goes, and it's I mean, I can't attest to having my own kids, but I can definitely attest to, like, my nieces and nephews and kind of that same, like, "Oh my gosh, you were, like, this big, and now you're, like, this big, and how do we get
Yeah.
from here?" You know? And it's precious, right?
Yeah, I mean, that they're sponges, so when you when you see the things that make you proud, it's like, yeah, they learned that from me, you know what I mean? And it can
Mhm.
go the other way as well. Like if they have like a goofy habit or something like that, it's like, oh yeah, you got that from me too, you know?
That's pretty awesome. What do you feel like has been, I guess we'll kind of go back to some challenges and adversities that you have faced as an athlete, right? We've talked quite a bit about business, talked a little bit about family. But what have been some of the adversities or the tough shit in your life that's created you into the athlete that you are now, that's gotten you back to the games, that's what fuels your fire and what's gotten in the way of you pursuing your potential or your dreams along the way?
Yeah, some of the adversity that I've dealt with has been injuries.
Mhm.
In 2014 was the first time that I tore my pec. I was at a local competition, not so local to me, but it was called the OC Throwdown, which is in California.
Mhm.
And one of the events that they had there was basically the NFL Combine. So it was like 40-meter yard dash, your 225 bench press, broad jump, shuttle run. And during the bench press portion of that test, I tore my pec and it required surgery.
Yeah.
And I was out of commission for quite some time. And this was the first time that I dealt with anything like this. I'm going from, really starting to grow in the sport to, all right, you're in a sling and you can't do anything now for the next 12 weeks.
Mhm.
But for me, what I did was I used that to research and develop um, my own facility, right? I wanted to open a gym at some point and, not training X amount of hours per day. I used that time to allocate to research and development of finding a facility, figuring out what I wanted to call it and basically doing all the back end and legwork to opening a gym. So
Mhm.
by the time I was healed and ready to go, I actually had my first gym opened up. So that was one of the pieces of adversity in the beginning that I dealt with. And that's kind of like how I overcame it. But it definitely was not easy.
Mhm.
When I figured out that I wanted to open my own gym, I told, my the gym that I was working at the time, and I basically like got kicked out of the gym.
Ugh.
So I was gymless, injured,
In a sling,
and
gymless.
yeah, couldn't wipe my own butt and trying to figure things out. And this is about 10 years ago now. So I'm, mid 20s, not a businessman really at that point, right? I'm kind of like trying to figure it out as I go. And yeah, just the beginning stages of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So that was the first injury. And then in 2017, this is coming off of being at the CrossFit Games for the first time in 2016 with Team Dynamics. I said, you know what? Just did team, feeling really good, feeling healthy. Let's make a run at individual again. So started training for the 2017 year. Open goes great. I have my best finish. I think I finished around like 15th worldwide. And we get to regionals, and this is the year of like no barbell. It's like all dumbbells and stuff like that. And did the first event. It was regional Murph, and didn't do great on that. And then the next workout was the 21-15-9 dumbbell snatch and ring dip workout. And on the first set of ring dips, like a couple of reps in, I tore my other pec. And I knew exactly that it happened because I know what the feeling felt like from the first one. And I'm like, shit, like, am I really going through this again? And yeah, it was a pretty tough time. I knew that I was going to be out for a long period of time again, and I wasn't sure like if I was going to be back in the sport or whatever the case was. But I just tried my best to stay the course, and I tried to be patient and just do what the doctors told me. I didn't try to come back too soon. And, you know, I made a full recovery again. And shortly after that, I started working with a new coach, and like, yeah, this is when I started working with Jay Leiden. And that's when I started working with Jay is when I started to get the itch of like doing online programming. So, you know, without that injury, I probably don't reach out to Jay to begin working with him. And then if I don't work with him, I don't get that bug to start working with athletes remotely from an online training standpoint. And then, you know, the rest kind of like follows through with that. So there was definitely good things that happened out of it, but at the time, it's really hard to see that, right? I mean, most people deal with some sort of adversity, and when things initially happen, or when you're in the darkest or lowest points of that, it's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. It takes more time in some instances than others, but there's always a way out, and things will always get better. You just gotta kind of stay the course.
Yeah. Well, that's where, you know, kind of that concept of pivoting comes from. I think a lot of people, you know, look at it and they're like, I need this overhaul, or I need to change complete directions, and I need to go make a 180-degree turn if something bad happens, or if something doesn't work out. And it's like, just make little pivots, you know what I mean? With what you have and what you can work with, and seek out other people and who you surround yourself with and mentors. And if, you know, you don't know what to do, ask for help. If you don't, you know, feel like you're in a position where you want to be, look to others to figure out how you want to get there, right? Like you're saying, like if you didn't get that injury, you wouldn't have asked that question. You wouldn't have opened that door. You wouldn't have pursued that opportunity and pivoted maybe into something different. You're not completely turning your back on fitness. You're not completely turning your back on where you were at or where you were going to go. It's just temporary to try to, you know, advance yourself. And it kind of goes back into that idea of like turning that adversity into what ends up being like a triumph, right? Whereas in the moment, it's the darkest before the dawn. You don't know what the hell's going to happen. You don't know when the sun's going to come up again, but you just keep aligning yourself in that right direction with those right people, and that time will come. Right? Would you agree
100%.
with that? And but it's hard. I mean, it's easy to sit here and look back and say like, oh yeah, this happened because of that, and this puzzle piece fit there, and it's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes like I have trouble sometimes regathering my thoughts because I feel like so many things have happened since then.
Mhm.
But, you know, you got to put things into perspective and like say like, oh yeah, like this wasn't a great time, but like look where we are now, you know. You got
Mhm.
to you got to appreciate and be grateful and show gratitude for those opportunities that have come.
Mhm. And I think something too people can take away is that you're not just an athlete, right? You're not just like this guy on social media that has rad content. You are very multifaceted. You are very, you know, you pursue opportunities and you persevere and you look at adversity as a challenge rather than like a defeat, right? And you don't necessarily fail, but you learn. And I think that that's one of the things that make you unique. And one of the reasons why, I know I want to talk to you, the team wanted to talk to you is because you got to show people that there's more to it than just like picking the dumbbell up and down, right? That might be a very large piece of who you are and a very amazing piece of who you are, but at the end of the day, a lot of people only get to spend half an hour to an hour in the gym, right? So you can maximize that, but who are you outside of the gym? What kind of values do you have? What kind of, things do you pursue? What do you want for yourself? And like one of the biggest takeaways that I hope people have from you, Chris, is this idea that like I can, right? That I can change and I can pivot and I can do different things and be fulfilled in a lot of different ways while also pursuing, amazing feats like going to the CrossFit Games or, being team or being individual or, kind of getting you, and this is a little brash, but it's like kind of getting your face kicked in a little bit with life and then coming back and hitting harder. Right.
Absolutely. It's
And
one of the so this week we actually talked about it with the kids on my son's football team that there's two things that happen when you play a game, right? You're either going to win or you're going to learn. And
mm,
sometimes when you win, you're not going to learn anything, but sometimes when you're learning, you might not be winning. So, there's those two things that really it's a nice life lesson to teach these 7-year-olds that it's not always about winning, right? You can always learning is just as important as winning, especially at their age. Like it's just flag football, right? Like but these little things that you teach them will stay with them for a long time. And that's really what I enjoy about it.
yeah, absolutely. And, for anyone out there too who's listening who maybe, isn't able to adopt that or hasn't been taught that yet. I mean, hopefully that's something they take away too. It's like, how can you learn? How can you be a student of life and a student maybe of your sport or of your job or of, you know, a student of Christian Harris? I mean, really, it's a unique opportunity to look at things in with a resilient mind and with a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. You're not doomed. You're one decision away from something completely different. So as long as you want to choose that and pursue that and believe in yourself, and even on those times where the last thing you want to do is believe in yourself because all the odds are stacked against you, find that little drive and your why within you to keep it going. Right. And that's, I think, your kind of credo, in case anyone doesn't know, is Chris's credo is work hard, stay humble, and be nice. Those are 6 words. Those are 6 very, very powerful words aligned together that you live your life by, right? And that, hopefully anyone out there can take away from this and really maybe apply to their own life and say, how can I be nice? How can I work hard? How can I be humble? How can I get humbled by life and still be nice? I mean, you can kind of
100%.
rearrange those a little bit however they seem fit for you. But For anyone out there, make sure to follow Chris. His handle is I am Chris Harris. So IAMCHRISHARRIS for our audio listeners out there. Chris, it's been a joy chatting with you. I appreciate your time very much. I know it's precious to you. And hopefully everyone out there gives you a follow, slide into those DMs, drop into the gym, get inspired. And I appreciate you being on the podcast here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
Absolutely. Make sure to subscribe to the Swole Friends podcast. We go live every Thursday with amazing people just like Chris. Subscribe here on YouTube, also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Twitch. And we will